coming up on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
So I was 12, I was jumping on the train with my friend, and then our next door neighbour was sitting outside having a few drinks, and then he offered, I think it was some homebrew whiskey. He was about 16 or 17 at the time. I tried it, and then he just kept giving me shots of it. So I ended up getting very intoxicated, and he pulled me over to the neighbour's house thing, and I couldn't even stand up, and he just let me, and I remember just falling down in front of him, and he's like, "Look what you've done to my daughter. She's 12 years old."
Even though you had such a bad experience, it didn't put you off?
For some reason, I just still gravitated towards it. I think it got truly addicted to alcohol, truly addicted, physically addicted to it, probably about a year before I went to rehab. But I'd get to 3 o'clock and I would start to, I was physically withdrawing from alcohol, and that's when I knew this is really bad. I would just get on my knees and I'd cry and I'd beg God, can you get me out? Because I was so unhappy.
Hey, you're listening to the Outside of Sunday podcast. Is your faith stuck on Sunday? Christianity was never meant to be constrained to a weekly church service. I'm Krista, and I'm here to help and encourage you to live your faith outside of Sunday. All right, welcome to this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. Today we have the beautiful Krystal Stevenson. Thank you so much, Krystal, for coming here. I feel like we have a lot to talk about and get into today. So how about we just start by just a quick introduction of who you are and where you are right now.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to be here. My name's Krystal, and I am the mother of 3 daughters. My oldest is 18. So I had her when I was pretty young. I was 18 myself, actually, which is kind of crazy. I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old as well, so all 3 girls. I was brought up in a Christian home, and I have a really strong family. So I'm number 2 of 5.
Yeah.
So lots of love there, lots of family support. Really awesome family. Yeah. But yes, unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't make life completely easy. Most of my career, I've been a teacher. I've been a teacher for a long time. Done a little bits and pieces in between having the kids and things like that. I am currently just relief teaching this year, and also doing a bit of tutoring with kids that are low in reading and maths, and I love it. Absolutely love that. It's a lot more one-on-one. It's a lot more rewarding. And it's a lot less stress and a lot less paperwork.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so it's really cool. Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. And I have just come out of rehab about 4 months ago now. Yeah, so I am in a funny place where I'm just learning how to live again at the moment. And it's been a real roller coaster for sure.
Yeah. So I think in order for us to understand where you are now, I think it's important to go back to where you were. So what was it like being brought up in your early years in that Christian home with the 5 kids?
It was intense. It was really intense. So my parents are awesome, and I love them very, very deeply. But they also came from a drug background. So they were radically saved, which is, I'm so glad they were. But they went from one extremity to the other. So in many ways, my sister and my older sister and myself, that we were really wrapped up in cotton wool. And it was good, but it was very strict, and it was very rigid, and the expectations were really, really high. And there wasn't a little leeway. But, I think it's the same with any children that are born first. Like, they get the rough deal because your parents, they don't really know what they're doing. And I'm the same. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing.
And they're less relaxed at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they definitely really relaxed with the 3 younger ones, for sure. But it was a good, steady home. Mum and Dad were, amazing. They're amazing Christian people, but they're human beings, of course. But it was a loving home. It was a loving home, but it had its flaws.
Yeah. I mean, every home does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's humanity, isn't it?
Yeah. And you went to a Christian school?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did. So when I was actually born in Nelson. So all of our extended family's down there. And we moved up to Rotorua when I was 2. which was really neat. But we didn't grow up with any extended family, which I really,
True,
and I didn't really think about it until I got older, because I missed out on that whole cousins and you know, that kind of thing. But it was also really hard on mum and dad, because they had 5 kids
and no support.
Wow. And it's not until I've gotten older that I've realised how hard that must have been for them. So that was, it was. So what was the question? The original question?
I was just saying, with your upbringing, this cotton wool almost being wrapped up in that, and then you had also on top of that Christian schooling.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think Christian schooling is wonderful. But how do you feel like that prepared you for what came next?
It didn't.
No.
It was. I did go to a Christian school, and it was amazing, and I felt really loved and protected, and the principal there was incredible. He was one of the big reasons I became a teacher. He was he just loved us. He really loved us, and he loved God. And he was a surfy guy. He was cool. He was fun, you know, but he was just a beautiful man. Mr. Gredig was his name. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gredig, if you're still alive. I'm not sure. And it was an incredible experience. But I went to school there until year 6, and then I went from there to John Paul College, which is from year 7 all the way to year 13. So it was a huge culture shock. Huge culture shock.
Just for those who don't know, it's a massive school in town.
Yes.
There's at least 1,000 children that go there, and all the way from primary to high school. So you kind of went there after intermediate?
It was at the beginning of intermediate.
Intermediate. Okay.
So it was, you know, I'd never really even heard a swear word in my life. And then all of a sudden,
really?
Wow. We were really sheltered.
Wow.
And so then all of a sudden there was, you know, swearing and smoking and boys.
True. I mean, there were boys at the Christian school.
Yeah, but there were, but I guess, you know, I was just young, and then, but there was a lot of boys, and I guess I got a lot of attention, and I wasn't used to that. Yeah.
So how did you handle that transition?
I didn't handle it very well. I think, I just sort of stopped caring a little bit, because I was always really academic, and I always was really high in my academics. So we had to do a test to get to place us where we were going to go in year 7, and I got like 98% on all of them. So this academically, the school set me up really, really well. But socially, and you know, learning how to navigate social situations and make good decisions. So
none of that was kind of talked about.
I don't remember it being talked about. And you know, it's that old school mentality with mum and dad. It was, why do you want me to do this? Why do you not want me to do this? Because I said so. There was no coaching,
no conversation about it.
There wasn't a lot of conversation. It was very much so, you do this because we're your parents. And I think it is that generation of, you know, you've got to respect your parents because I said so. But I needed more. I needed to know why, and I needed guidance. And I really missed out somehow on that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. The why, like,
absolutely.
My son asks me why all the time. Yeah. And I'll be honest, sometimes I do have to say, look, it's just because I need you to do this right now. There is no answer to that why. Yeah. This is just, you need to do this. But I do love having those conversations. And I don't know, I feel like, that curiosity, it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
You know, let them into your thought mentality. Let them in to understand. Anyway, that's unrelated. But but carry on. I can understand why that would have been.
I don't know. That's the feeling that I remember anyway. I always remember feeling quite sort of misunderstood from a very young age. Very misunderstood, and I'm not sure why that is. I still don't know why that is, to be honest. But I think. Yeah, it was what it was.
So when you moved to this new school, that opened up a new world of like possibility.
And just it was quite overwhelming actually, a very overwhelming feeling. And my head gravitated towards friends that were a little bit on the naughtier side, I suppose. That liked to push the boundaries. Those kinds of things. And it's a Catholic school, but there weren't really that many authentic Christians, I don't think. at that school, or I didn't find them. I found the opposite ones. I mean, and I wasn't, they weren't really hearty, like they weren't doing drugs or anything like that, but they were just a little bit rebellious, and I definitely gravitated towards that
And I
crowd.
suppose you're entering your teenage years at that point, so there is that whole, and I don't think every child goes through this, but some, there is that whole rebellious teen thing of I'm becoming my own person now. Yeah. Hear me, see me, let me do what I want to do, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rebellion was sort of my number one thing for a long time.
So is that where your kind of first interaction with alcohol came from?
Yeah, it did.
What was that like?
So I remember it quite vividly.
Really?
It was a really bad experience. It was, which is incredible because I ended up becoming an alcoholic in my later life. Wow. You'd think it would have put me off, but it didn't. Yeah. So my next door neighbour over the fence, my friend and I were playing on the trampoline. So I was 12. I was 12.
Wow.
Yeah. And I never really tried alcohol or anything. Mum and Dad used to have the odd drink here and there, but they were really careful with alcohol because of their past. Yeah. And they didn't really have it around a lot. And it wasn't taboo, but it wasn't... They never really had those conversations with us as well. Not that I can remember anyway. So I was 12. I was jumping on the tramp with my friend, and then our next door neighbour was sitting outside having a few drinks, and then we got to talking to him, and then he offered, I think it was some homebrew whiskey. Yeah, he offered us some homebrew whiskey. He was about 16 or 17 at the time, and me being, I might give it a go. I tried it, and then he just kept giving me shots of it. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I ended up getting very intoxicated.
At 12 years old. Was your friend as well?
No, she ran off because she didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so here I was at 12 trying to act normal at the dinner table, absolutely drunk as a skunk.
Oh my goodness.
Mum and Dad were sort of like, what the heck is going on? Like, they knew something was weird with me. But it wasn't until my dad, because we used to have the old phones with the cords, and I used to go and sit outside, and he must have overheard. I think he was listening in, and he overheard me tell my friend on the phone that I had been drinking the neighbour's whiskey. Yeah, and he got so angry.
Oh my goodness.
He I was falling. I couldn't even stand up.
Oh, Krystal.
It was really bad, and I feel like I'm exposing my parents right now. He got really angry, and he picked me, grabbed me, and he pulled me over to the neighbour's house thing, and I couldn't even stand up, and he just let me, and I remember just falling down in front of him, and he's like, look what you've done to my daughter. Oh my goodness. She's 12 years old. Yeah. He was really angry, and rightfully so.
I would be,
so.
Absolutely.
And so that was what happened, and then the next thing I remember, I was in my room throwing up. I couldn't move my head. So I was oh my goodness. I was drowning in my own vomit, basically.
Oh my goodness.
It was a really scary situation. So I just remember doing that, and I remember having this feeling, it's really vivid, I felt like I was going to hell, like I was falling down this tunnel. Wow. It's almost like my body was, I don't know, it was alcohol poisoning, it was horrific. Wow. But I just remember crying out to God and being like, God, I'm going to die and I'm going to go to hell. It was really such a scary experience. At 12, I was just a baby. Wow. Yeah. And then I just remember getting up, and I managed to wake up and have a shower because there was vomit all over my hair and everything. Managed to get in the shower and have a shower and stuff. And then the next day I didn't go to school. But my parents were really angry. Really angry at me, and for my punishment they made me write apology letters to everybody that I'd hurt.
What do you mean, by being drunk?
By getting drunk.
Okay, so who was on the list?
So Mum, Dad, I don't know, I can't even remember. I think I had to I think my brother walked past and saw me, so I had to write an apology letter to him. Okay. It was really, I felt really shamed by it. It was just what is wrong with you? I really felt like there was no there was no what's going on in your life that you think it's okay to do that, or that you wanted to get out of it. Because I remember feeling like I just want a reprieve from my head at the moment. Like it was I wasn't doing very well mentally. I can't remember. I think I had a stressful day at school or something, but I've always been quite prone to depression and low moods. And I guess I was wanting to get out of it, and I wanted to stay on that buzz of, that relaxing buzz. But the problem with drinking more alcohol is that you get really drunk.
And as a 12-year-old, you don't understand.
Oh, and I had no concept. I had no
No.
concept of the differences of beer and the, percentages of alcohol, and that spirits is really high, especially homebrew. It must have been about 40-50% alcohol.
Yeah.
So I had no concept. So it was all really quite raw, and I just didn't know what I was doing. But it was just a really bad experience, the whole thing. But I lived, thank the Lord.
Thank the Lord.
Could have been a different story.
Yeah. So you said, like, even though you had such a bad experience, it didn't put you off.
It put me off drinking whiskey. I don't like drinking whiskey. I never have.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I just still gravitated towards it. Yeah. I mean, I know why. I know why I gravitated towards alcohol.
Why is that?
It's that initial feeling when you drink. It's that it quietens down your mind. So for me, I've got a really busy mind, a very, very overactive mind, and I've had to learn, like lately, over the last year, how to discipline my mind. So when I drank, it just numbed everything, and it just made things feel quiet and still and peaceful. And then you're chasing that feeling, so that you'll have another drink, and then you want to keep chasing that feeling. I couldn't just have one drink. I always had to keep on that. I wanted to keep on that level, but then you just you end up getting drunk. You
wanted to maintain that.
So
so I think for some people they drink for the social side of things, but it wasn't really that for you. No. It's because you just wanted that.
I mean, the social side of it's good because you lose your inhibitions and you become more laid back, and I enjoyed that side of it as well. But I think for me it was always about that, getting that glow, let's call it the glow. It's not much of a glow. It's more of a numbness. I think for me it was medicating. I was self-medicating massively. Yeah. It's always been about self-medicating.
And at what point in your life did you kind of realize, okay, I'm not just enjoying this recreationally, this is becoming an addiction?
That's a really hard question, because I didn't go to rehab until I'm 36 now. I didn't go to rehab until now. So I guess my relationship with it changed over time. I mean, I had 3 pregnancies, so I didn't drink when I was pregnant, and I was able to stop. I think it got to a point when I was about 30, and it was starting to. I was just getting really down, and I knew that alcohol wasn't helping my moods, so I made a decision to stop for about a month, and it was a bit tricky, but it wasn't too bad. My relationship with alcohol got really bad when I met my girl's dad, because we would always just catch up for a drink, and that ended up being our thing. And so I ended up being with him for 8 years, and so that drinking was really a massive part of what we did together. So I think it got like truly addicted to alcohol, truly addicted, physically addicted to it, probably about a year before I went to rehab. Because I never drank at work. Because I just thought I'd lose my job in a heartbeat. Being a teacher, I was full-time teaching. Like, you can't drink at work. You want to, especially when you're teaching and you've got alcohol dependency. But I'd get to 3:00. This went on for probably about 6 months to a year, and I would start to. I was physically withdrawing from alcohol, and that's when I knew this is really bad. Like, my body is craving and needing it just to feel normal. And then I'd shoot to the supermarket and then straight away. So probably about a year before of really bad alcohol addiction. I had managed to stop for periods of time before that, and I would come right, but then I'd always return to it, and it just had such a hold on my life. Yeah.
If you're enjoying this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. And at this point of your life, did you have any kind of a relationship with the Lord?
I think that had so much to do with my drinking as well, because because I was living on the fence. You know, I knew God existed all my whole life. I've had a really strong faith in God. Yeah. And I love God. But I wasn't living the lifestyle, and it tormented me. Oh wow. And it was horrific. It was like torment, you know, when you know something but you just can't. I just didn't know how to live like that. I didn't know how to do it. Yeah. So I think that was such a struggle, and mentally I was just always felt like I was a hypocrite, and you know, just all of that. Oh, so much to it, yeah. But I think the spiritual element was massive for me, because I so wanted to serve God, and I knew there was a God, and I knew there was more, and I knew there was way more to my life than what I was living, but I just was self-medicating because of, you know, that was a huge part of it. Yeah.
So you're at this point in your life, you've got 3 daughters, you're a teacher, and you're finding that you're getting the shakes at like 3 p.m. and you're needing that alcohol to just calm your body, and it's becoming like a absolute addiction. Was there a moment where you were just like, I need help, or were you just content to keep that going?
There were a lot of moments, a lot of drunk moments where I just would get absolutely wasted, and I would just get on my knees and I'd cry and I'd beg God, can you get me out? Because I was so unhappy. So there were a lot of moments. There was a lot of calling out to God, can you please help me? Can you please help me? And I was always willing to go and get the help. I just didn't know how I was going to do it, because I was a single mum, you know, 3 kids, teaching, and I was like, how am I going to get help? Because I'm going to have to leave. But that is I mean, for all of my parents' faults when I was younger, they were there, and they told me the truth, and they said, Krystal, that was my family that did that. They all sat me down. My brother came down from Auckland, and they sat me down and they said, Krystal, you really need help. And I said, I know. I said, I know. What can we do though? I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do, because where are the kids going to go? I don't want them to go and live with their dad, because he's got a lot of alcohol problems as well, and mental health issues. So, and they're like, we'll have your children. Wow. And my mum and dad said that we'll look after your kids for you. And that shocked me, because they're almost, you know, my dad's just retired. My mum's just about to retire. The last thing they want to be doing is looking after little kids, you know. But they love me. Like, they really love me. And I know they do. I know that they do. And they love my children. But it was really tricky too, because I had to battle their dad with it. Of course. Because I've always had them full time, and he used to have them on the weekends. But he decided that when I went to rehab, that he wanted to have the kids. So that's been a whole kettle of fish in itself. I've had my demons and my battles, and God loves him anyway. And that's been such a huge part of my recovery, is forgiveness, and not just forgiving once, forgiving over and over and over and over. And I'm going to have to continue to do that. Yeah.
So you're at this point where your family has set you down. And they've lovingly, I mean, I'm hoping it's lovingly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was. Yeah,
it was. Yeah. Okay, so they've lovingly sat you down and said, we need to do something. I mean, what was the solution? Because at that moment, there didn't seem like there was one. No. What became the answer?
My dad did some research on rehabs, and he wanted a Christian one, because it's so important, you know, because spirituality is a huge part of everything. I mean, it's the most important thing. So he found one in Wellington, Kapiti Coast actually, and it was a Christian one, but it was a 6-month minimum program.
Wow.
So when they said that, when my dad said 6 months, I thought, what? That is such a long time. Yeah. And I couldn't understand, because most programs are about 12 weeks. Some of them are like 3 months. 5 months and things like that, but it's a 6-month minimum.
Wow.
So a lot of people are actually there for a year and a half because, well, you get to a point in your life where your life's completely messed up. You have to relearn everything. You have to rewire. That takes time.
Wow.
It takes a lot of time. So I ended up being there for 8 months.
Okay.
So they decide as a staff when they think that you're ready to go. So you're at the whim of them the whole time. You're like, yeah, and you don't know the set date that you're gonna leave, and that's hard. Yeah, that's really hard, especially when you're battling a thing with your children's dad, and you've got to tell the court when things are going to happen. Yeah. So that was a really hard thing to not have an end in sight. That was tricky, but it was good for me because it just made me have to sit and be still and just try and just to be okay with the situation. And there was so much healing that happened. It's an incredible place. And
I just think the fact that you were on board, I think that's huge. Like actually being willing to go, like Chris, that's like so huge. Credit to you, Krystal, for actually being open to have that and to go and to actually go and do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also kind of did get to a point in my life where I had two choices. I could keep doing what I was doing. I've got 2 drink driving convictions.
Oh, really?
Yep. And I had to go up against in front of the board to keep my teacher's registration. Wow. To prove that I was going to do something about this issue because they obviously don't want teachers driving around drunk.
No.
Or teaching children.
Yeah.
So I had to plead my case, and it was beautiful timing because at that stage, God's so amazing with his timing. At that stage, I had booked myself into Tanico, so I could say to them, hey, look, I'm doing something about this.
Yes.
It's not going to happen again because I'm doing something about it.
Yeah.
And they were amazing. They were actually a panel, like you're sitting in front of a panel of, I think there's about 6 or 7 of them, all from different walks of life. And they were so encouraging, and they actually had a few tears with me.
Oh.
Yeah, because they really cared, and they were like, they could see that I hadn't had an easy life, and I was just trying to cope. And it was quite an amazing experience. I was so nervous about going, but it was really nice. So I managed to keep my teacher's registration, which is so good because I worked so hard as a single mum with my baby when I was 18, and I studied for 3 years to get it, and it was hard work, and I had 3 different jobs, to try and support us. So not that career's everything, but I really value what I do. And if that had been taken away from me, I think I would have got into a really dark place.
I'm so glad that it all worked out. Yeah.
So I still do have those drink driving convictions, but that really played on my mind too, because if I was continuing to drink, it was probably inevitable that it was going to happen again. And then, I mean, what's going to happen next time? I'm going to, I would have ended up going to prison eventually.
No, yeah.
And that's the truth of it. And I had to be really honest with myself about that. Because you live in a lot of denial when you're in addiction. A lot of denial. Denial is a massive thing. And I had to stop. I had to stop living in denial. I had to realize how serious it was. And there was a few, I could tell you lots of different incidences that happened when I just got really wasted. And my poor family had to pick up the pieces quite a few times when those things happened, particularly my mother. But it was wreaking havoc. It was chaotic, and it was ugly. It was so ugly. And it wasn't just ugly for me, it was ugly for everybody around me. And you don't realise the extent of it until you're out of it. You just think you're hurting yourself. Oh, nobody knows. I'm just hurting myself. I'm just self-medicating myself. But you are affecting everybody around you. And one of the first things that they say to you in your first class at rehab is, he says, you're all a bunch of liars. And I thought, yep, definitely I have lied a lot in my addiction. Yep, absolutely. I haven't had anything to drink. Everybody knows you have. I don't know whether it's quite a raw subject, but I think I'm just going to talk about it. So there was another incident that happened when I was 14. So I got raped when I was 14.
Oh, Krystal.
Yeah. So that was a massive, massive downfall for me. Like, it really screwed me up. and I never really got the help that I needed.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's okay. How would you know?
Well, we were friends.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's
like,
not
we
something
were
you
hanging
advertise.
out.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah. But that was a really massive thing for me because it really robbed me of my self-worth. And because I was brought up in a Christian home, you know, it's you're saving yourself for marriage, you know, and that's what I wanted. And I had boyfriends and stuff, and I was always really adamant that I wasn't gonna have sex before marriage, and then it was I felt like it was just taken away from me, and it really ruined me. It really. But trauma is such a big part of addiction. I guarantee there's probably 99.9% of people that have got addiction problems, there's been trauma in their lives.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that trauma, it never got resolved, it never got healed. So I just carried it with me. And I tried to get on with life.
You just carried on.
You have to in some ways. So that was huge. Yeah. And I became quite promiscuous after that because I just thought, I didn't want to make it not a big deal in my mind. It's just, sex isn't that much of a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just something physical that people do, you know. So I was trying to protect my mind. Yeah. So that led me to make some questionable decisions about men. So it really, I really carried that for a long time. And I still struggle with my self-esteem a lot now. It's a battle for me.
Yeah.
I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like, it feels like I'm making 10 steps forward and then, 20 back. But it's a work in progress.
So you feel like maybe that was something you were medicating for as well?
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Hugely. Yes. Yeah, hugely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when you got to Wellington, what did that look like? Like, how did they work through your addiction? Even did they help with the trauma of that?
Yeah, they did. So we had different classes with different people. One of them was solely based around addiction itself. So it was really practical. It was really good. So it was talking about, how we ended up getting into that position. A lot of it was about preventing, when we leave the place, what are we going to do to make sure that we don't fall back into it? Because that's the nature of addiction, isn't it? It's really, really difficult to get out of, and even when you do get out of it, you still have to battle it. Yeah, that's been my experience anyway. Some people are miraculously healed from it, and I'm so jealous of that. I'm like, why do I have to suffer with this constant fight? But yeah, so there was different classes. One of them was that. There was also another one that we did, and it was just learning about God and God's heart and who He is, and
that's cool.
It was beautiful. I really loved that class. There was a lot of tears because you have to be really honest in those groups, because if you're not honest, you're not going to get out what you put. You get out what you put in. So that was really good. And then we had another one too. I found really practical. We talked about all the lies that we've believed, but actually pinpointing all the different areas and the specific lies that we've believed, that we've lived our lives by, like everything from money to how we think about men, how we think about ourselves, and then pinpointing those, identifying them, and then turning it around. So for me, I went a step further and I rewrote them all, and I rewrote them into truth for me, because I really needed to retrain my brain. And that was huge. I found that so powerful, really, really powerful. And then we'd also have counselling once a week. So each person that goes there, they have counselling, and that's when you talk about your trauma. That's when you talk about everything. And you deal with a lot of that in there. So that you always leave that room pretty drained. I had a lot of, it was so interesting. I had quite a few issues with being able to cry. Like because I've been hard for so long, and I was like, I think I was scared that if I opened that gate, then I wouldn't stop, because I just had so much sorrow. And since coming out of rehab, I cry all the time now, and
welcome to the club.
It's really different, but it's also really it's hard, because I have to be still be functioning human.
Yeah.
But I'm my heart. God is softening my heart, and it's painful. It is hard. It's really painful, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's really necessary. So I'm so sensitive, and because I don't have that self-medication anymore, I can't hide from the rawness of things. Yeah. So when you're self-medicating, you're just trying to avoid emotion. Yeah. And so I feel like I'm a baby in many ways. I really do, because I was self-medicating for so long. So that's what it looks like. We used to, what else did we do? We ran like a little home. Like you'd do grocery lists together with all the people, and then you'd cook maybe once or twice a week. And we weren't allowed to watch TV until 6:00. Like, it was really strict. But I think, we weren't allowed our phones, which was really good. Yeah. It was incredibly valuable.
I would love that.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
It was so good, because you can't distract yourself with anything other than reading. I did a lot of reading. And it was really good. It was so hard though. The first 3 months probably, I still had really strong cravings in the evening. Pushing through that was so hard. It felt like every minute was like pulling my teeth out. Wow. And because I was so physically addicted to it.
Was there any kind of physical reaction to being deprived?
So what I ended up having to do, and I'm so grateful I had this beautiful community nurse who, because I'd been trying to get help from the doctors for a long time, and I'd been talking about this problem.
Before?
This is before going to rehab.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd been to the doctor multiple times, and they're just like, "We'll just stop." And it's like, okay, cool.
I need help.
Thank
just
you for
stop.
that. Yeah. So I ended up going into therapy. Got a therapist, and it was really good because I got ACC special claims for that. Wow. So it was all paid for. Yeah. Which was really amazing. And she gave me a few tips and things, but I felt like it wasn't really dealing with the spiritual element, which is so big, you know. She was a Christian, but she just sort of it was a real surface level kind of situation, I felt, and it just wasn't really helping that much. But she was helpful. She was good. She was nice, but it just I needed more.
You needed more.
I think I really just needed to remove myself for a long period of time from life and the environment and people, and so
and even what you're just saying about the phone thing, I can't remove myself from my phone because people need to contact me, but if you can get away and have that time where you are okay to just be disconnected, and it's almost essential at that time to be disconnected, and like you say, to learn how to live without your routine of this is how I wind down for the evening. So how long did it take, do you think, for that change to happen? Oh,
sorry, I forgot to mention about the when I stopped drinking, I had to go through a detox they medicate you, so they had to medicate me. Medicated detox. So it's what is it? I can't remember what it's called, but it's an anti-anxiety. It's kind of like a sedative, because you otherwise you just uncontrollably shake. Wow. It was so weird, because he's like, stick your I remember the guy, because he came around to my house and he said, poke your tongue out, and my tongue was even shaking. It was that bad.
Was this in Rotorua?
In Rotorua, yeah.
Before you went?
Before I went. So I had to detox before I went.
I didn't realise that. Okay, so you detox before you go, and then you go.
Yeah.
So this guy would come around and he would give you a sedative?
Well, he would give me medication, but because I had mum and dad there, he let them be in control of the, making sure, because otherwise people will just abuse it, because it makes you out of it. Yeah. It didn't actually make me out of it. It just made me feel like I wasn't going to shake, because I was that bad. My body was that addicted to alcohol.
Coming up next week on the Outside of Sunday podcast.
She used to say to me, when you drink, Mum, I can just tell because your eyes go dark, and it's like you're not there. Because you're not, you're, and that's so dangerous, so dangerous. It's like something takes over you, and that's what it felt like. It's almost like you get possessed or something. Recovery and sobriety is absolutely worth it. It's worth the battle for you, because it's life and death. Yeah, it would have killed me It was killing me. I'm just this cheesy Christian now, and I go around and I say, bless you, have a blessed day. I mean, you know, just, and a smile and kindness, and we are called to be the light. I know it's so cheesy, but I always think about that. What would Jesus do? And I really think that's how he wants us to live our lives, the way he lived his life.
Congrats, you made it to the end of this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. Thanks for the support. Become an official outsider by liking and subscribing and leaving a 5-star review. You can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search Outside of Sunday podcast, and don't forget to let someone you know about this podcast.